Hello, and welcome to another of Marty's tutorials. I am Martin Kelleher, a Microsoft MVP, or Most Valuable Professional, and today's tutorial is on the power of cascading style sheets, better known as CSS. I will use some HTML to create a very simple web page, and we will then add some CSS to format the content of that page. It is always a good idea to sketch out what you want your finished page to look like. This gives you a roadmap to completing your project. So first we're going to take a look at our final page in a browser. I like to use Chrome. So now let's take a look at that in Chrome. Okay, first let's take a look at our sketch that I drew up for our sample web page. Again, it's a really good idea to create a sketch for yourselves. It's a good roadmap on how to work and how to create your HTML and then your CSS. So this is what I kind of want the web page to look like when I'm finished. Basically what I'd like is a body, as you can see out here, represented by the word body, with a darkish gray background. And then I've got a container, and you might notice the pound symbol here. The pound symbol is how we're going to tell Cascading Style Sheets that this div or this container or this area is given the ID container. So we're going to use a little bit of code, and we're just basically going to say div ID equals container. So that's this area here. So that area, it looks like it's kind of white. Then I have a header. Okay, again, it's got a div ID of header, and we represent that in Cascading Style Sheets with a pound symbol. So in my sketch, I just kind of like to do header. And notice it's got a blue background and some white text. So I'm going to have to do, and also the text is centered. Okay, aligned and center. So I'm going to have to do some Cascading Style Sheet styles to create that and make that happen. Okay. The next thing we're going to look at is this area called content. Okay, so I've got this box called content, and it has a lightish gray background. So I'm going to have to style that in Cascading Style Sheets. You also notice that I've used the ID content. We'll need to refer to that later, and I'm going to add a color, a background color, to that ID content or to the hashtag content in Cascading Style Sheet of this light gray color. Okay, I also have two divs within the content div. One is called nav, and you see I've given it an ID called nav, and that's for obvious reasons, for navigation. And also I've got one called main. Now I'm using, I don't want to confuse anybody, I'm using some old HTML4 techniques with using divs within divs. Okay, in HTML5 there is another way of doing this. With the article and the aside, you can put the article over here and the aside over here, and you can use a float tag to float one to the left, both to the left, one to the left, one to the right, and HTML5 handles that really, really well. But the divs with the floats do it well. There's maybe some extra coding we have to do to make sure that it works just like we want it to. But for the sake of this tutorial and just showing you the power of Cascading Style Sheets, this is very simple and is going to work very well, and I'm going to show you the code in a minute. So right now, you can see I have a header. This is a H2 header, and it's centered again, and we'll Cascade Style Sheet that within the main. And there's some paragraph, basically one paragraph right here. I think I have 3 paragraphs in the actual code, but this is just the mock-up, remember. And then at the bottom here I have a footer, again with the ID footer. I have a little copyright symbol. I'll show you how to create that, and I match the color of the background of the header with the color of the background of the footer. Makes the page look kind of nice. So that's kind of the mock-up of what we're going to do here today in the next half hour. Let's take a look at the finished site. Okay, there it is. Okay, remember we have And I apologize that I'm cut off a little bit here, but don't worry, I'll allow you to see the whole thing when we're done. You're not missing much over here except for the fact that it's cutting off a little bit of the paragraph text. So again, we have a body, which you can't see on the sides because of my screen capture video limitations, but you can see the body down here, the dark gray. Okay, you can kind of see that in the content area I've got that light gray that we talked about. Okay, in my nav and in my main, you can see that I have my navigation list. It's called LI is the tag. It's an unordered list. We'll talk about that when we do the HTML coding. And over here I have a header and a paragraph, and I think in my sketch I had the header centered. I don't have it centered here. It's something I can show you. It's going to be a design preference. Obviously I didn't put it in the styling, but maybe we will just to show you the difference. And of course I have my styling here. I have my copyright here. You notice I have the copyright symbol. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's very simple. And so the page is neat and clean. It's very simple and rudimentary. It's just been made for the sake of showing you the power of cascading style sheets. And I'm going to show you first. We're going to code the HTML. It's not going to take that long, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And when we code the HTML, I'm going to show you what the page looks like in just HTML with no style formatting applied. And what you'll see is the same content you're looking at right now, but it'll be formatted totally different. Then we're going to go ahead and write our cascading style sheet, or our styles, and then we're going to apply that cascading style sheets by linking the external style sheet to the HTML sheet, and we'll see that it'll format everything in the way that we want it to format. So let's get started. Hello. Thank you for returning to my videos. We are going to be talking about HTML and cascading style sheets. So let's get started with the coding. The first thing we're going to do is going to go ahead and put in all of our HTML tags and just build this website very quickly. The easiest thing to do is we're going to start with HTML tag. We're going to close that HTML tag. And once I've done that, I can just simply put my cursor between the two tags, put a few spaces in there, and now that's what my browser is going to read. So I like to use the indentation method. That way it kind of keeps your code simple and easy for the next person to read. We'll talk more about that later. Right now I am going to add the next tags, and the next tags I'm going to add is something called a head tag. So simply, if you don't know HTML, you probably should watch some other videos first, but the head tag is simply head, and I'm closing the head tag right away, putting my cursor in between and adding a couple spaces. I'm going to go ahead and do this real quick. I'm going to put a title. The title within the head tag simply displays on the browser tab. Let's say you've got multiple tabs open. This is what's going to display on the tab, so your client or the user can quickly see the web page, your web page that they've got open. So I'm going to just call it Marty's sample web page. Whoops, that's not right. I'm going to call it title. That's the tag. Close that title. I'm going to go ahead and call it Marty's sample web page, or website, or no, page, because it's not a site, is it? It's a page. And I'm going to go ahead and close that title tag, and that's it. That's simple. Now there is one other thing we're going to put in this head tag, and this is where it belongs. This is a place where you put some kind of housekeeping stuff like meta tags and things like that for the browser to read, maybe for the search engines to search your site, and maybe make it more searchable, more recoverable. There's some things you can do with some meta tags. That's a different tutorial, more advanced. It's got nothing to do with the design or how your web page will look or behave. So there is one other thing that we need to put in here. This is where we're going to put our link to our cascading style sheet. We're going to actually create an external style sheet. You can do inline styles or internal styles, or external style sheets. We are going to create an external style sheet for the sake of this tutorial. It's really slick, but I have to tell this HTML page where the style sheet is and where to go look for it. Okay, and that's what's going to go in this line. I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to do it near the end of our tutorial. But I'm going to leave a space for right now. So that's my header. The next thing I'm going to put in is my body. Close that body tag. Whoops, I put it in the wrong place. I need to let you know that I have very fat thumbs, and the touchpad on the laptop that I use is extremely sensitive. So many times I hit it by mistake and my cursor goes places that I don't want or don't expect. So forgive me if that happens. So I'm going to go ahead and open a body tag, and I'm going to go ahead right away close a body tag. This is a design preference, a coding preference, a developer preference, however you want to call it. I just like to do it because I used to, when I first started out doing this, forget. I used to and spend hours at the end of my project wondering why something isn't working correctly. So I always open and close my tags immediately, and then I just put my spaces in there and I can add whatever I need to add. Remember, I left a space here to put in the link for the Cascading Style sheet. Spaces are, I like them when I'm developing and designing because it helps me to see better. But when I get done, I usually delete all my spaces and keep my code as compact and as neat as possible, which is why we use tabs. Also notice that Notepad++ kind of shows you the line between the body tags. It also shows you the line between the head tags, and it also shows you a line between the HTML tags. You know, so you can kind of keep track of each tag opening and closing and what's kind of inside of it. So right now I'm in my body tag, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the tab key to indent one more space, and I know for a fact that I need to build a container, a div container. So let's just take a look to make sure I'm right. So I've got my body, which is this area out here, and within that body I've got this, what looks like the whole site or a page on the inside, and that page is inside this div or divider called container. Okay, there's my divider called container. And I know that it's a div because I see the ID, or this is how CSS determines what it's going to style. And when you give a div an ID, which is what we're going to do, when you go to the CSS, you reference that ID by the pound symbol. All right, so pound container. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and create my div. So div ID equals, and then I put an open quotation mark. The good news is Notepad++ puts a closed quotation mark. I just did the fat thumb thing again, excuse me. Div ID, I got my open and close, and my cursor is now blinking in between. I can type in container. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to hit enter a couple times. Actually, I'm going to hit it 4 times because I've got some stuff to put in the container. And I'm going to close my div. So let's just close the div tag. And you can see we closed it. You can see that we've got our line here. We've got our ID. So now we can, this area here, whatever code, whatever items, whatever content I put in here can be referenced by the Cascading Style sheet by this name and by pound container. That's how we're going to reference an ID. It's really, really slick. We'll get to that when we get to the Cascading Style sheets. So I've got that div container. What's going on inside the container? Well, I think the first thing is a header, right? There's a header, there's a content. Within the content, there's a nav and a main. And then at the bottom of that container, I've got a footer. So let's go ahead and do what I need to do. So the first thing I've got is, is a header. So I'm going to go ahead and tab. I'm going to create a div. I'm going to create a div. And I'm going to give it an ID equal to header. Again, open the quotations, and Notepad++ closes the quotations for me. So there's my header tag. I'm going to go ahead and close this div. That's my header open and closed. I'm going to go ahead and put some text in here, right? So what have I got? Well, actually I know what I've got. Inside this header, I've got some H1 text. HTML uses 6 styles of headings. Okay, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. Each, as the number increases, the size of the font and boldness of the font decreases. But these are nice because it allows you to consistently place headings on your page and easily style them later by using the heading tag. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and indent one more time. I'm going to add an H1 tag. I'm going to go ahead and give my close bracket. Whoops, I didn't open bracket. Did I? I probably did it somewhere. Oh yeah, look where I did it. Ooh-wee. This touchpad is giving me more trouble. So now I'm within the header. I'm going to add an H1 tag. I'm going to kind of close the bracket on that H1 tag. I'm going to say, I don't remember what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Marty Sample Website. Okay? So that's what's going to appear in the header. It's going to appear in that header with the formatting of H1 heading. So now what do I got to do? I got to close the header. So H1, that's closed just like that. That's in my div. There's my entire header done. Okay. Now it's not styled. You remember on our finished product, the Marty Sample Website was centered. It was, the text color was white. The background was blue. That's all stuff we're going to do in Cascading Style Sheets later. But for right now, we've got a header with a heading of Marty Sample Website, and that will appear in the browser. We'll take a look at it in just a minute. Let's do a little more work. So, header, close header, right? Container, here's my 2 header divs, right? And you see I get down here. I forgot to indent this. Let me indent that one. Okay, good. It's hard to see, but there is a line there. Now, what's the other thing in the header? There's nothing, but there are some more things in the container, and they are at the same kind of level as the header, right? So what I've got is a content. That's the next thing that's going to come within my container, is this content div. So let's go ahead and create that. So I'm going to create a div. Simple, right? Should have this by now. And whoops, and I'm going to give it an ID equal to content. Remember, I put my open parens, or my open quotations. It puts my close quotations for me. There's my contents. Go ahead and close that. Go ahead and close the div, and move my cursor to the middle. Boom. Now, I'm making a little extra spaces here because within my content div, I've got 2 more divs, okay? I should stop here and say that I've really converted to HTML5. In this tutorial, I'm kind of sticking with some HTML4. It doesn't make a scrap of difference to this tutorial or to what we're kind of trying to portray with the power of Cascading Style Sheets. It's just, you should know that this technique in HTML5 is a little bit different. You have containers called nav, or tags called nav for your navigation. You don't have to put them in divs. You have a way to put these 2 divs that are side by side. You can actually use the aside and the article tags in HTML5 to do the same thing. Small minor differences. There's definitely some advantages to it. None of it's important to this tutorial. So just follow along, and I know that kind of in the description we talked about doing HTML5. We're really doing HTML4 and Cascading Style Sheet 3. So anyway, enough about that. So what we're doing now is we've got our content. Okay, we put it inside the container. And now with inside of the content, we need to build a div called nav and a div called main. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm in the contents. Whoops. You know what? I almost broke my cardinal rule. Let me go ahead and close. Oh, I didn't break my cardinal rule. I did close the div. There it is right there. So let's go ahead and do what? We're going to also put in a div called nav. Right? We're going to close that div. I need to let you know that we're going to put some stuff inside of here too. So we're going to put an unordered list and some list items inside here, so I need some space. Okay. Now also inside the div contents, we're also going to put the div Okay, next let's create our div called main. We're going to make this sure that's in the inside the div of contents, underneath the div of nav. So let's go ahead and open our div tag. Give it an ID equal to, oh, I don't know, how about what do we call it, main. And then I'm going to go ahead and close that tag and close my div. Now with inside main, I am going to place a heading. I think it was Marty's page, and I'm also going to place some paragraph tags. So let's go ahead and do that. Tab to indent once and put an H3 tag. Let's put an H3 tag in. So H3, close bracket, Marty's page, close the H3 tag, and that's it. Now we're going to put our paragraphs in. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to copy and paste from some text that I've already created. I don't know if you'll be able to see it when I go to copy and paste it, but you might be able to. So you can see it's highlighted right here. I'm copying and pasting these two paragraphs and the paragraph tags just to save some time. Let's go back to my tutorial HTML in my Notepad++. Go ahead and hit paste. And you notice it's go ahead and put the opening paragraph tag in as well as a closed paragraph tag. Let me close the bracket on that, and that's my div main is completed. I've got Marty's page for a heading, and I've got 3 paragraph tags for 3 lines of text that will be separated by paragraph tags. So where else we got to go next? Let's go ahead and take a look at our roadmap. So looks like, bear with me, it looks like we have got our main div created. We've got our nav div created. We haven't done our unordered list and our list items within our nav. We're going to go ahead and do those next, and then we got to create a footer. So let's go ahead and create our unordered list and our list tags just to be consistent and go in the order that we're working on off our roadmap. So we're going to go back to, excuse me, so we're going to need to scroll. Well, maybe, yeah, we're going to need to scroll a little bit. Within our div ID tag, I'm just going to come down a space so that you can see it. This should be within the range. We are inside of our div nav, and we are going to create what's called an unordered list. So simply use the tag UL, and then I'm going to go ahead and close the tag UL. And with inside that list, I'm going to, or what's inside that unordered list, I'm actually going to create something called a list. So I'm going to hit a tab. I'm going to do the tag li, and for the first item in my list, I'm going to put home for my home key, or for my home page, excuse me. Close that list item. And what I can simply do now to save time is highlight this line, Control C to copy it, drop down a line and hit Control V twice more. And so what I've done is I've copied that line for my list items in my unordered list, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and oops. I'm going to change the text that appears inside my list to about and contact. And then of course contact would be the last one. That's how they're going to appear on your page in that order. So that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and save this. I'm choosing the toolbar save up top. And we are now going to go ahead and see what this page looks like. Oh no, we haven't done our footer. So let's go back to our roadmap and make sure we stay on track. So in our roadmap it shows us that the one other thing that we need is a footer. And we're going to go ahead and place that inside the div called container, not inside the div called content. So let's go ahead and move back, take a look at this. I'm going to tell you right now that this div that you can see here is inside the div container, which is where we want to be. This div here, I may have, yep, I forgot, I've lost a div, which would have caused me big trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in right now. Right here, I'm going to close the div contents. Div contents is closed. Okay, div contents is closed. Div container. So I have to be inside this div right here. So let's go be inside this div right here and let's make a footer. So I'm going to hit a new div and I'm going to call it ID footer. And I should close that div. Drop it down a little bit. We are going to add our copyright symbol, and we're going to use an H6 tag. So I'm going to simply make an H6 tag, which is simply H6, open bracket, close bracket, and then I'm going to type in what? The copyright, Marty 2015. So in order to make the copyright symbol, you simply use the code ampersand and the word copy, and that'll put in that little C within a circle. And then I'm going to put copyright Marty 2015. Okay, and that's good enough. So now what I'm going to do is close my H6 tag. Prior to pausing the video for a drink of water, you saw me close the H6 tag in the footer for the copyright, which is right down here if you can see it. And that's what I had done in the finish. What I did while the video was paused was I cleaned up a lot of the spacing. So now what I want you to notice is how clean is this code, right? It's really, really clean and easy to read, okay? And why is that important? Well, I'll give you an example. I was working on a responsive website design project. A responsive website design is one that will, the web page will actually change based on the media. It'll look differently on a tablet and a telephone screen. It recognizes what screen it's on, and it'll shrink graphics. It'll line up divs on top of each other. It will make text bigger. It will change navigation. It's really a good way to design websites, and you're going to see much more of it. As a matter of fact, you're going to see probably everybody will be coding responsive websites really soon, because people viewing web pages and websites on their telephones is becoming very popular. So that's going to drive the industry. So that being said, we're going to just take a look at the code. I got rid of all the spacing, and so I was telling you one of the advantages of it is that it's really easy to follow your code. It's easy to see where this div content starts and where this div contents ends. So I know everything inside here is in the divider called contents, okay? And so what's important about having your code clean and neat is when you're collaborating. For example, I told you I was working on this responsive website. I was running into some problems, and there's a gentleman that I know, and I was able to send him my file, the HTML file, and he took a look at it for me. He was very kind, and he immediately he caught the issue instantly, and he was able to tell me that it was on line 48, and you can see in Notepad C++ all your lines are numbered. So I was able to go to line 48, and it was something extremely simple that I just had overlooked, and he really was able to point it out for me. I was really grateful. So if your code is really messy, it's harder to troubleshoot. If your code is cleaner, it's much easier to troubleshoot. Okay, so I think our code is pretty clean. Okay, so what's the next step? Well, we want to see how this displays in a browser. Does this work? Does this HTML work? So let's go ahead and take that next. So what I want to do is I'm going to bring up a browser. Okay, and there's my browser. I think that's Chrome. I've got Google showing, and I also want to bring up my Explorer window, and you'll notice that there's my file called tutorial HTML. So I'm going to HTML. Excuse me. I'm going to simply drag this tutorial into my browser window and drop it. When I drop it here, it should display the contents of this file. So I dropped it, and what do you know? First of all, I want you to notice that it's using the file C users admin desktop HTML. These things stand for spaces, right? So whatever name I've given this or this folder, HTML tutorial but just know that works. So the interesting thing is, if we can bring up our code real quick, remember we had in the title Marty's sample web page, and in heading 1 we have Marty's sample website. Well, there's Marty's sample web page in my head tag inside a tag called title that displays whatever information you have between those two tags in this tab, so that your user can look. If he's got 6 tabs open, he can easily see, oh, I want to go back to Marty's sample website web page. Let me click on this tab, because you've given him the name right up here. Okay, then my header. Okay, inside my container I have a header. Inside my header I have an H1 tag with Marty's sample website, and here's Marty's sample website with a heading of H1. It's a big heading, right? This is a H3 heading where it says Marty's page. Underneath Marty's sample website, you can see that we have our navigation. Okay, not working just yet, but it will be soon. I did not add the hrefs, which I should have. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. And then next we have a couple paragraphs of text, and finally we have our copyright, Marty 2015, which we put in our footer. So it's displaying all the HTML that we told it to display. What I need to add now is the links to make these navigation buttons. So let's go ahead and do that. Hello, welcome back. We ended off at a point where we were going to come back and change our list items to be links. And I'd like to say that I left this for last on purpose, but the truth is I forgot to do it when we were actually creating the contents of the div nav. And we could have done it all at once. But I'm glad that I did, because it's going to let me talk about using the ID, or a class, to identify one of our items rather than using the ID. You notice that in our sample draw up or markup that we're using for the roadmap, I use the hashtag all the time for our cascading style sheet, like hashtag contents, hashtag containers, hashtag main, hashtag nav. We're going to create a class, and that class is going to be current. What that's going to stand for is whatever current page we're on. And wouldn't we like to let the user know that they're on the home page, or that they're on the about page, and that they're on the contact page? So we're going to want to add a different style to whichever link that they are currently on. So that's leaving this to last is going to allow me to show you how to in HTML code a class. It's very, very simple. Let's go ahead and get started. So what I need to do is, I'm back in Notepad++, and you can see that I'm on our tutorial HTML file, and I'm going to go within our link, or excuse me, that's not link, that stands for list item. We're going to go within our list item, and we want home to be a link. So what I need to do is I need to add an A tag for a hyperlink, right? So let's go ahead and add our A tag. So we should be within the link tag, we should also have an A tag. So let's go ahead and open and close an A tag. Now I'm going to wait to close this at the end, only because it's kind of going to be in line with the word home is where I'm going to end this. So what I'm going to do is, on my A tag, I'm going to enter a class. Notice that it turns red. Notepad++ lets you know that this is something special. And so I'm going to put equals, like I did the ID. And when I put equals, I have to tell it what am I going to call this class. And so when I'm going to tell it something, I'm going to put it in open and close quotation marks. So this means the link that's selected, whatever link I'm selected on. So I'm going to call it selected. I think that's the easiest way to define this. So selected. I'm in my closed pad. Now I have to give it the hyperlink. So href, hyperlink reference, is the HTML for that. And then I'm going to have to tell it where my hyperlink is, right? Well, in this case, we're only creating one page. We're not really creating a website, so I don't have other sites to reference to it right now. But I want, for testing purposes, I want my mouse behaviors, I want it to turn to the little finger when I hover over it. I want it to maybe have a certain behavior when I click on it. So in order to be able to test all that, I have to give the href reference someplace to go. So there's a way for developers to simply have the link stay where it's at, and that's to put a hashtag or pound symbol with inside quotation marks. Oops. So just like that, okay? And that's going to allow you, again, this is basic HTML. Please take some basic HTML tutorials if this is unfamiliar to you. Again, and I know we haven't really started the cascading style sheets yet, so we're about to start them real quick. So this is going to create our link for us right here. So we're going to go ahead and close that A tag, right? And so now I've got my home. Now I have to close my A tag. And that should do it. Okay. So now what I can simply do is I'm going to go ahead and do the about. Now remember, we are creating our home page, right? So I'm going to want home to be selected right now. So that's why I've kind of put this line of code here with the class for selected here. We're not going to put it on the about page. All we're going to put on the about page is the href, right? So I need to put an a tag. Let's go ahead and do that. And then href equals. And I'm going to open my quote. Notepad++ is going to close my quote. I'm going to put my pound symbol in there. I'm going to simply put my close bracket. And I'm going to close my a tag on the other side of the word about. Oops, excuse me. And that should do it. So now that I've got that, I can simply copy this, right? Put that in front of contact because it's the same. And then I can, well, I'm going to be lazy. It's real simple to just type this in, but I'm going to be lazy. Control C. I didn't like something I just did. I'm going to Control V. Let's take a, oh yeah, I didn't copy it. Okay. Well, I guess it's telling me don't be lazy, just simply type in. It's such an easy tag to type in, so that's it. And what did I delete? I deleted nothing, so I'm good. Yeah, I didn't. I'm not good. This a tag needs to be with inside. Control X needs to be in here. Control V. Okay. So now I think we're good. So now, well, let's test it. Why don't we test it? Let's go ahead and look at our web page. Should still be up. I think it is. Excuse me. It's still up. Nothing's changed. Why has nothing changed? I still can't. Oh, I know why nothing has changed. Nothing has changed because I have to refresh my page. So it might be just out of the range of the camera. Let me bring it down here. So I'm going to hit my refresh button. Now let's see what happens. Nope. Oh. Okay, this is always very, very important. Okay, when you're testing. What did I forget to do? Anybody know? It's pretty simple, really. I'm back in Notepad++. I'm going to drop this down and show you. In Notepad++, when you're working, you can save all the files you're working on. You can save a simple file. When these icons are blue, you have not saved the file. The minute you click on it, they turn gray. You have saved the file. So now let's go back and test what I just did in Notepad++, and let's test the function. I still have to refresh the page. Refresh. Uh-oh, what just happened? Well, the browser says any links, we're going to make them blue and underline them. Also, it turns to a mouse. Okay, so my href tags are working. You'll notice if I click on it, it's not going to go anywhere because I gave it the href ID of the hashtag. But that's fine. We're just testing. If you were creating a web page, what you would do is when you were finished or when the other pages were done, you would simply go in and replace the hashtag with the URL for the about page or for the contact page. And of course, if you are the web designer or developer and those pages are within the same folder as the home page, you don't need to put the entire URL. You can, but you can simply just put the name of the page. So anyway, we'll talk more about that in another tutorial. But these are now working. So where do we go from here? Well, I like what we've done so far. So I'm going to take a little break and we'll be right back. Okay, let's get to the meat of it. Let's style our web page. We're in Note++ still, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new page. So I'm simply going to come to File and New. Notepad is, I'm going to go ahead and save this right now. File, Save As. And what Notepad++ wants to know is, what kind of sheet are you working on? Well, I'm working on a cascading style sheet, so I'm saving it as a type of cascading style sheet. It's really a text/CSS. But if you come down here, and it should be in alphabetical order, there is an option for cascading style sheet file. Okay, so it's going to save it with an extension of CSS, which is what I really want. Now, for the name, I'm going to call it, let's just call it tutorial. I like to do lowercase, excuse me, tutorial style 1 CSS. Okay, so we've got our new page, and you'll notice in the tab it's got the name, so it'll be easier for me to find. It's right next to the file tutorial HTML, and I've got tutorial style 1.css, and we're going to start creating our styles. So I think what will be helpful is to kind of look at our roadmap, and it appears that during the break I've closed my roadmap, so I'm going to pause this video for 1 second and open it up. Bear with me. Welcome back, and I apologize for that, but we've got our roadmap, or I called it roadmap when I painted it. It's our roadmap to see what we want our finished website to look like. And so right now what we're going to do is we're going to style the body, and you can see the body's got a background of a simple gray color, right? So this is the area that we're going to style right now, this gray color right here. So let's go ahead and do that. The next thing we're going to style is the container. It's got a lighter gray style, so we're going to probably need to use a hex code for that. We're going to use the word gray for this. Then we got a header right here. We're going to style that with a blue background. We're going to center this text, and we may size this text as well. Okay, great. Let's build our cascading style sheet. So we're going to start with the body. That's going to be our first style that we're going to apply. So I'm simply going to type the word body. That's how the CSS sheet is going to know to style everything that's in the body. Okay? So anytime you do a CSS style sheet, you're going to want to follow some formatting rules. So I'm going to type the name of the area that I want to style, and then I have to open it and close it with a curly bracket. Here's the great news. In CSS, or excuse me, in Notepad++, when I type in the open curly bracket, it puts the close bracket in for me, thus helping avoid errors later. So just like in my HTML file, I'm going to give myself some spaces, and I'm going to tab or indent to make my code a little bit easier to read. And so simply all we're going to add to this body style is a background color. And again, I'm not exactly teaching CSS here. Hopefully you'll learn some stuff. So you'll have to learn what some of these styles and elements are, but there is a simple format for applying them, and I'm going to show you that right now. So we have the open curly bracket, the closed curly bracket, and within it I'm going to simply type background color, and it's hyphen. Now here's a nice thing that Notepad++ does that some of your other text editors don't do. It knows CSS. It understands CSS pretty well. So the minute I type background and hyphen, it's going to give me some suggestions. You know, background repeat, background position, background image, background color, background attachment. What is it that you want to style? Well, I want to style the color. So I could simply keep typing color, but I could also highlight what it is that I'm looking for. And if I'm up here on attachment, which is what it asked me, or what is suggested in the beginning, the minute I type the C, it's going to go down to color, and I can hit the tab on the keyboard. It's going to fill it in for me. Now, I forgot. Let me go back and indent this a little bit. I like indenting. It just makes your code cleaner and easier to read. I'm going to delete this. Delete that space. So there we go. Background color. Now, after every element, you're going to put a colon. And then after every style, you're going to put a semicolon. So what do I want to do? I want the background color to be gray. We're going to talk a little bit about colors here in just a second. CSS understands the basic colors: white, blue, gray, red, green, but those are your basic, the standard colors for that word. If you want a shade of color, right, like let's say a lighter shade of gray, which we're going to do in the container or the contents, we're going to have to use hex codes, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Hex codes are very powerful for getting the exact color that you want. And I'm also going to show you a website where you can find hex codes for your favorite colors. That's going to be listed in the description, and we're also going to go ahead and take a look at it here on the video. So, background color gray, done. That's it. You've styled the body with a background color gray. Very, very simple. So I'm going to show you this as we go along. I'll go back and forth. Remember, you have to save each time you do it. I'm going to bring this down so we can see it. Notice that the save and the save all icons are blue, which means I haven't saved, but I will before I show you the site as we're moving along. And I will show you as we move along. I like to sometimes just keep it all to the end and take a look at it, but I also want you to see that what we're doing has an effect. But let's do a little more work, and then we'll get to that. So I'm outside of my body. I don't really need to worry about the body. So I tend to try and do things in order, right? And again, I go back to my roadmap. Whoops, right there was my roadmap. And I'm going to go ahead and do my A tags. They're right here. I'm thinking about them. I'm going to do my A tags. And what I don't like about my A tags right now is I don't like these bullet points, right? Okay, everything's working good, right? I don't like these bullet points. I don't really want it underlined. I don't really want it blue. Do I? I don't know. But I certainly don't want these bullet points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of them. Let's see how I do that in CSS. Okay? So in CSS, I'm going to simply type the tag that I'm going to be styling. Whoops, not above, just A. And I'm going to go ahead and put my open bracket. It puts my closed bracket for me. And I'm going to add a single line of CSS. And that's going to be simply text decoration. And also notice as I start typing text, it starts giving me all the options for text. And when I put the hyphen in the D, immediately text decoration is highlighted. I can hit my tab key. It's going to fill it in for me. Don't forget to close it with a colon. And now I'm just going to simply tell it I don't want any text decoration, and the code for that is none. Close with a semicolon, we're done. Okay, so you know what, let's go ahead and take a look at these. I really don't want to be going back and forth all the time. I'd rather just kind of give you the nice big surprise at the end, but let's see what we've done so far, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, oh, it's not going to work. I haven't linked my external style sheet to my tutorial HTML. That's a big key to this. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Yeah, let's do a little more styling first. So I want to style my container. So you remember I gave the div container an ID? Yes, so the ID was container. In order to reference that in CSS, I have to type in what? Pound container. Right? So if we go back and look at our example, you notice that what I used in my draw or mock-up is I used the heading pound container, pound header. This is the pound container. So this is what we're doing here. I'm going to leave it white. I think I've got a light gray here. I'm going to put a light gray background in content to kind of have some contrast between our sections. But I'm going to leave the container white. Let's just leave it white right now and see what we got going on. So container, I have to do what? Open and close curly brackets. So I put my open. Whoa, I'm in the wrong place. Big fat thumbs again. Right, so come to the end of container. I like to hit a tab. Then I'm going to open and close the curly brackets. I definitely have enough space to do what I want to do. I'm going to tab to indent just to make my code easier to read. And within the container, I want to tell it, okay, I want a width of 800 pixels. Okay, that's going to be a fixed width. So I'm simply going to type width. Don't forget my colon, then 800. Now you can say percent, you can say, there's a couple things you could say here. When I hit the P, notice that I'm going to put pixel, px, and then a semicolon. And so that's going to make the container 800 pixels wide. That's this area right here. So when the browser opens up, 800 pixels of the browser is going to be this. Everything extra, depending on what size the resolution is set at, is going to be this gray. But this is going to be where my content is going to be contained within this 800 pixels. And that's a pretty safe size for any resolution that's going on, right? So anyway, you never want to scroll side to side. Scrolling up and down is acceptable. If you can help it, you don't want to, but it is acceptable. So we've made our pixel width 800 pixels. All right, with our container being 800 pixels wide, if we don't add a little more style to it, it's going to align left. It's going to be 800 pixels from the left-hand edge. It'll look a lot nicer if it's centered within the page. So how do I do that? There's a simple way where we can actually put a margin left, a margin right, and set those margins to be auto, and that'll automatically set it up to be centered. So let's go ahead and do that. Notice that I have a margin right, colon, whoa, big fat thumbs again, and that's going to be set at auto, and a margin left. And that's going to be set at auto. And that's going to center my 800 pixel width container. Alright, and that's simply all we need to do. I'm going to delete this space right now just to make my code a little cleaner. And that's good for right now. So what's inside the container? Quite a bit. We're going to start with the header, right? Let's just go back and take a look at our sample. So we've got our container. We've created the width for the container as 800. We've contained it's centered auto. I know my picture isn't actually centered, but we have centered it. So now let's start adding cascading styles to what's inside the container. And the first thing I come across in my mock-up or my roadmap is the header. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to center this heading, an H1 tag. We want to center this text align center, and we want to give it a background color of blue. Okay, so let's do that. Don't forget your hashtag or your pound symbol and header, and that's going to give me my header. And so the first thing I need to do is do some open and close curly brackets. There they are. I give myself some spaces because in this instance I know that we're going to be doing a lot. Oops. So I'm going to go ahead and change my background color to blue. And you see there's my tooltip. I can simply type it. Don't forget your colon. I'm going to simply type in the word blue. We haven't really got to the hex stuff yet, but we will in a minute. Blue, semicolon, closes it. Alright? What else do we need to do in the header? Well, I forgot to mention as I was looking at our mock-up that the color of our text, and so we're just going to use the word color, was white. Let me show you a little hex trick right now. So the hex code for white is FFFFFF. Okay? So in order to put a hex code in, I have to put my hashtag or my pound symbol. That's telling CSS and HTML that the next color is a hex color. Use the hex code. Anytime that all 6 characters of the hex code are the same, in this case F, 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 they're all Fs. Anytime that all 6 are the same, you can abbreviate it with 3 of the letters or numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in F, F, F. That's the same as FF, FF, FF. Okay? So there's my color. Don't forget to put your semicolon. And so that's going to give my text a color of white. Okay? So my background color is blue. My color is white. I have a couple other things I want to do here. What about alignment of the text? Well, anything that's going to be in the header, any text that's going to be in the header, I want it to be text aligned. I want that to be centered. Okay, and that's simply done that. Now, this is something that we will talk more about if you're in a CSS specific class. I want to add a font family, excuse me. I think I've made a mistake. Let me see. Font hyphen family. There it is. Font family, and put my my colon. And in this font family, we're going to tell it what fonts we want to use. Well, I want to use Arial. A couple of reasons why I like Arial. I'm not going to get into them in this video, but I want to use Arial. Now, what if the person who's viewing this page doesn't have the font Arial on their computer? Well, I want to give it an alternative. So I'm going to give it a very unspecific font family called sans serif. Arial is a sans serif font, but there are many other sans serif fonts. Sans stands for without serif, is the little, actually you can kind of see it if you look at this font, because this is not a sans serif font. You can see the little serifs at the bottom, like at the bottom of the A or the top of the A. Those little lines to help kind of create a line are called serifs, like at the bottom of the L. But I want to use sans serif fonts, so I'm going to hit sans serif. And I'm going to close it with a semicolon. So now it's going to display the font Arial in that header. If the person who's viewing this, if their browser, if their computer doesn't support Arial or they don't have Arial, we can go ahead and put in a sans serif font. You know what? I'm going to add one more. Helvetica is kind of the Mac equivalent to Arial. So I'm going to go ahead and add Helvetica. And you have to separate these with commas, okay? And I've done that. So I've got Arial. If it doesn't have Arial, look for Helvetica. If it doesn't have Arial or Helvetica, go ahead and put any sans serif font that's on their computer. And they'll surely have at least one sans serif font. Okay? So what else? Maybe I want to tell it what font size I want to use. And you can see size is there. And let's go ahead and make it 12 pixels. I think I did the fat thumb thing again, excuse me. So I like what I've got for my header, and I'm going to go ahead and save my file right now. See how both of them are blue? We know we haven't saved it. So I've gone ahead and saved it. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and link my tutorial HTML to my tutorial style 1.css. So I have to go back to my tutorial HTML and add one very, very simple line of code. Let's go ahead and do that now. So I brought up my tutorial HTML file, and you can see it's the same as where we left it. And you can also see that I've left a space in my head tag for just this line of code that we're about to put in right now. Here's what we have to do. We have to tell tutorial HTML that the CSS style, tutorial style 1.css is what's going to create the styles for the rest of this page. So how do we do that? Well, you have to put a link tag in. We have to link these two pages together, really. So simply type in link, and then we're going to tell it relative, and it's going to equal what? It's going to equal, don't forget, we're going to, anytime we put an equal, we usually have to put in the open and close quotation marks. We're going to put in a style sheet. Alright, what type of style sheet is it going to be? Well, we're going to tell it type, and we're going to tell it equal, open quotation, and we're going to tell it's a text, /CSS. So it's both, really, right? And now we have to tell it where is it. All right. So you simply use an href tag like you were referencing any hyperlink. In this case, we're really fortunate because it's going to be in the same folder, which means it's going to be in the same level. We do not have to type in a real long URL. You can, but we don't have to, and we don't need to, so we're not going to. So the href equals, we're simply going to tell the name of our CSS sheet, which is tutorial. Excuse me. Don't forget you have to spell everything the same, and I put a capital S in my name of my style sheet, and I also have the number 1 at tutorial style 1.css. So that line of code right there is going to going to link our style sheet to our HTML sheet. Now the nice thing about the link tag is it's self-closing, meaning I can actually I don't have to write a close link tag. I can actually just close it within the same tag. So I just put close bracket, and I'm done. That does it. That's going to link the two sheets together. So that being said, let's go take a look and see what we've done so far in our CSS sheet. So what we've done is we've changed the background to gray. We've taken away the bullet points from our navigation. We've made the container to be 800 pixels wide rather than the whole page. We've also made it margin left auto, margin right auto to center it. We've given our header a background color of blue, a text color of white. We've aligned the text center. We've asked it to use this Arial font and the font size of 12. Let's see if it works. Well, don't forget, gotta save. I'm going to go ahead and save that sheet. I'm going to go ahead and open up my HTML page. Why didn't it work? Well, maybe it did. I just haven't refreshed it yet. So it's not looking at the new HTML that I just gave it. The new HTML links to the Cascading Style sheet, so we should see some changes. We should see some changes. I'm not seeing any changes. So let me see. I think I know what I did wrong. It's a good example. Let's go ahead and take a look. I think when I hit the save button, I did. Okay, when I hit the save button, I just hit the save. A really good feature is the save all button, right? So by hitting the save all, I save the Cascading, the tutorial style sheet, and the Cascading Style sheet. Let me just take a look to make sure I spelled everything right. Tutorial style 1.css. That looks good to me. Link relative equal style sheet. Yeah, that looks good. No, that doesn't look good. There's my problem right here. Notice where I've got a semicolon right here. That is not what I want at all. Anybody know what I want there? I need an equal symbol. Okay. So the type is going to equal. So that along with the save, I don't know which one was the problem. Probably both. So I'm going to hit my save all right now. So what is the lesson here? Well, the lesson here is that typos happen, right? If your code is clean and neat and you become more and more experienced, you'll kind of know where the errors were. Well, you know, my HTML looked just fine right before we did this. And now all that wasn't working was the link to the CSS. So I really knew that the problem had to be here in line 4. I think that I've solved the problem. Let's go ahead and take a look. What if I refresh it now? Oh, okay. So we're getting there. So I've got a header. I don't like the decoration that I didn't get rid of the bullet points. I should have gotten rid of the bullet points, so there's something I did wrong here. I'm going to go take a look at that right now. But certainly my header, the text is centered. My body is gray. Okay, we haven't really done much with the container. We will. I'm going to change the container to white. You notice that my FFF worked because the text is white in the header. and the background is blue and it's centered. So the header CSS worked. My A tag didn't work. I really need my text decoration to be none, so I'm going to go take a look at that. Everything else is working as it was, but let's go ahead and make some changes, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at my... So I know that this line of code is working. How do I know? Because at least the header changed, right? So I have to be linked to this style sheet. So this line of code is good. I can go back to my tutorial CSS and see where I made my mistake. So somewhere in here I made a mistake, and I don't really see where it is. I'll have to take a look at that. Background color gray for the body, that's good. The container, let's put a background color of white in there to just kind of change everything so we can see where that is. Or no, let's put a background color of a light gray. That's what I want to do. No, I'm going to put white, and we'll put the light gray in the contents container. So I'm going to go ahead and tab that, and I'm going to go ahead and hit background color, and I'm going to put a hex code, and I have to do that with a pound symbol. And I know that no, I'm going to put white. That's what I want, white. So hex code FFF for white. Yeah, you can use caps, you don't have to. FFF and a semicolon, and so that should do it. We're going to go ahead and take a look. I don't like going back and forth all the time, but I'm going to do it for this. So the container portion of this should now... Let me also spread this open so you can see what I see. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to refresh this. Okay. So I don't know if you can see this or not. You should be able to see it. You should be able to see a little bit on the left. I think you're cut off here on the right. But what I see is I see a margin on both sides. Remember we set the margin to auto? Okay, there is a margin of auto. My screen capture is only a certain size. I do that so it's easier for you to see. But do know that this container, which is white now, remember we made the container white, okay, is 800 pixels wide, which is wider than my screen capture, I'm sorry, but I've got a margin that's equal on both sides, depending how wide I bring my web page up. So I'm going to close it a little bit, and as I close it, it's margin auto. Notice that it's changing the left and right margins as I close it. But know that that's working, okay? Still, my text decoration is not working. I have to figure out what I did wrong there. So I apologize for that. But let's just move on, and we'll try and fix that at the end. Okay? So, let's go back to our code. Alright, so we just did our header. We like our header. What's the next thing in our code? Well, I think we've got our container where we've got our background color white. Let's change our contents. Let's change the contents color to be a light gray, so it just gives a little bit of contrast to what's going on there. Okay, let's go. Now let's style our contents div. The contents div contains the div navigation and the div main, but right now we're going to just worry about the contents div itself. So simply I'm going to write the hashtag or the pound symbol contents, and when I sorry, it didn't type. I'm not sure why. Let me try it again. Hashtag contents, that's better. Now that I got my contents, I'm going to go ahead and indent and put an open and close curly bracket. I'm going to actually add just 2 lines of code here. I'm going to give a background color to my contents to give it some contrast. And that's going to be, let's go with background hyphen color. And I think I want to use a light shade of gray. So I'm going to need to use a hex code here. And right now I'm going to go ahead and show you this website that I use to determine my hex codes. So I'm going to go ahead and put my semicolon there, and I'm going to go and put my hash mark. Now I need to know this hex code, and I do know this one because I use it quite a bit. But let's say you're just learning and you want to find some of your favorite hex codes. you can go to this web page. I've got the tab opened right here, and if you notice, one of the nice things about colorhex.com is it remembers me, basically probably from an IP address, probably some cookies it placed on my machine, but it remembers me, and it remembers the colors that I like and that I've used in the past. There's a way that you can look at all the colors and figure out which one you want, but basically it's going to prompt me with some of the colors that I've used in the past and ask me if I want to go ahead and use them again. And notice that underneath the colors are the hex codes, right? For this shade of pink, there's the hex code, FE99881. I'm looking for a shade of gray that I like to use frequently, and there it is. Okay, I like this shade of gray right here. Whoops, sorry, outside of the range of the screen. Now it is in this range of the screen. This is the one that I actually like. So what you can do is you can copy and paste the color, you can remember the color, whatever you want to do. So I'll copy and paste it, Control C. That's the hex code that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Alt Tab feature to get back to my code, and I can simply type in, because it's going to bring the hex code, Control V, and it's going to put in the shade of gray that I like. Don't forget your semicolon, and that's my background color. I'm going to do one more thing in the contest. I'm going to add a padding. What this is going to do is, remember that inside of contents we've got a couple other divs, the nav div and the main div. It's going to give a little padding, a little space between the margins and anything else that comes in between it. So I'd like a little space. I don't want these other divs that are inside here to be right on top of each other, because sometimes just the space makes the page look a little neater. So I'm going to add padding, and simple padding. If you notice, as I type in padding, you notice there's a bottom, a left, a right, a top. You can put padding for just one, or you can put padding for all. Basically, you can do it many different ways. Okay, so I could do padding 10, 5, 10, 7. Okay, what that's telling, the style that's communicating to the HTML sheet is, and it always goes in this order, and think clockwise. 10 to the top, 5 to the right, 10 to the bottom, 6 to the left. Okay? Now, if you want the padding to be the same on all sides, you could simply type 10, 10, 10, 10. Okay, that's one way to do it. Or you can simply type 10 pixels, semicolon, and it'll apply 10 pixels to all sides. And so since that's what I want, that's what I'm going to do. There's many different ways to do that in Cascading Style Sheets, but that's the simplest for this scenario. So there I've created my contents CSS. I do want to go ahead and take a look at this gray color just to see what it looks like and how it looks. So what do I need to do? Well, first I want to save my sheets. Done. Okay, so let's come back up so we can see all of our CSS. And now I have to go ahead and look at my web page. I'm still on the ColorHex web page. Love this web page. You'll learn to use it quite a bit. There's a lot of things you can do on it. I'm going to go back to our sample web page, which you can see based on the tab. Notice I've got a couple different tabs open, Marty's sample page and the ColorHex page, so I can easily go back and forth between them. But now I've added the container, and I've added a gray background and a little bit of padding to that container. Okay, so let's see what happens when I refresh it. Oh, there it goes. So here's the padding. Okay, there's a little bit of padding between the container and the header. There's a little bit of padding between the container and the footer. There's a little bit of padding between the left and the right sides of the margin. Okay, and there's also padding, it's hard to really see, but there is padding between the main div and the navigation div. I also realized that I have not made a mistake in my code here. Okay, what I did for the aref, let's go take a look at that. Let's go back to my aref, is I put text decoration none. Okay, and what you probably realize watching the video is what disappeared. The underline. That's really all that I told it to do in that cascading style command. Text decoration none. Get rid of the underline. I'm about to get rid of the bullet points. We'll talk about that. That's within the nav ul tag. Okay? So let's. All right, we're going to apply some styles to our nav div. And remember, the nav div, we have to give it the name, the pound symbol. Whoops, excuse me. I did this last time. Now my cursor's in there, so I'm going to hit pound div, or excuse me, pound nav. That's telling it that what I want to style is in the nav div. I'm going to do my open curly brackets. No plus plus automatically puts my closed curly brackets, and I'm going to add a few styles. So the first thing I want to do is add a width. So I'm simply going to type width, semicolon, and then I want it to be 180 pixels wide. I'm going to explain this in just a second when I do the main width. But the nav width, I want it to be 100 pixels wide. I'm going to close that with a semicolon. I'm going to add a little more. I'm going to add a float left because I want this to be to the left. So simply float. And you see if I put a hyphen, it'll automatically, and I put a left, it'll automatically say left. Whoops, nope, that's not how I do it. Sorry, float, and I'm going to put a semicolon, and I'm going to type in the word left, and then I'm going to go ahead and close that with a semicolon. So now that's going to float that to the left, and finally I want to give it a background color. So let's give it a background color of what? Well, we could go back to our website. I just want to add some contrast to this. So maybe, well, let's just add white. So background color white, put my semicolon. We know what the hex value for white is. It's 3Fs. And we're going to close that with a semicolon. Okay? So, this is where I made the mistake in the past. Remember we talked about, whoops, lost my curly bracket. Put that back in. This is where we want to get rid of my bullet points, right? So we have to be very, very specific. So within the div nav, we have something called an unordered list, the UL, right? So in the whoops, that auto-completed. I didn't want ultra condensed. I just wanted UL. And what I'm going to do now is, I forgot to put my curly brackets. Let's do that. Open and close curly brackets. It does it for me. And I'm going to put a line of code. And the code is going to be very simple. I just want to tell it list, because remember we put a list in there. The style of the list, separated by a hyphen, and the type of the style. And here I want to say none again. And that should remove my bullet points. Now the next line of code is I'm going to put a little padding. I would like this list to be completely aligned to the left, and because that's the default for anything within a div, I'm going to just say padding none, or I'm going to declare it to be 0 pixels and semicolon. Okay, so that is our nav UL, our navigation UL. Our unordered list is going to have a list type style of none, and it's going to have a padding of 0. So that should remove our bullet points and move the list to the left. Finally, remember we added a class called selected for the page that the customer or the consumer is on, and we want to add some formatting to the text of our list to let them know that they're actually on that page. So we're going to do that right now. So again, we have to tell it exactly where we want it. So it's in nav, it's in the unordered list. I'm sorry. It's the class selected within my div nav. So that's the select I want. I'm going to have to put an open and closed bracket. Open it, it closes it for me, put a couple spaces, tab to indent, and I'm going to actually just add a font weight and font weight semicolon, and I'm going to set it to be bold. Alright, and I think I also want it to be underlined. I think bold is good enough. So let's do that, and that's our nav selected. So now let's do our main, and we're going to go back and talk about the width of the nav being 180, and we're going to talk about what we want to do with our div main. So I'm going to type in # main. That's referencing our div called main. Open and close brackets. A little space because I got a couple lines of codes to write in here, and I'm going to give it a background color of FFF. So simply background color FFF, hex symbol FFF, excuse me, and semicolon, and then I'm going to give it a width of okay, this is where we got to do a little bit of math. It's very simple math, but do you remember that we gave the container a width of 800 pixels? So we've given our nav, which resides inside of our container, a width of 180. What does that leave us left? Well, you might think 720, but you may have forgotten about the padding that we used inside the contents. And so between each div within the contents, we have a padding of 10, and so that's listed right here. So we need to account for this when we create our main. So basically 10 and 10 on left and right side of nav, that's going to be 20, and 10 and 10 on left side of main, that's 40. So 40 with 180, I'm just going to go ahead and make this 600. So width 600 pixels, semicolon. Now we want to float this, and I'm going to float it to where? To the right side of the page. Semicolon, and that should do it. Let's take a look and see what we've got. Don't forget that I need to save. I like to hit the save all. Now I know I've saved my cascading style sheet. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at our sample web page. What should happen? Well, when I hit refresh, the bullet point should disappear, the navigation should move over, and my main should move up and equal to my navigation. Let's see what I did. Oh, looking good. What's the problem? Well, we have a small problem. That copyright is not in the right place, is it? Okay, and also we've got kind of a, we don't like this padding or this margin on the top. We will definitely fix that here in a second. But let's just talk about going a step at a time. We've done what we wanted. We've separated our navigation and our main div, but our footer is kind of in the wrong place. So let's go ahead and keep doing our cascading style sheets. Alright, so we've got main and everything where we want it. I think that I need to add a padding of 0, probably in my contents. Oh no, padding of 10 in my contents. I don't know why that gray bar is there. I'm going to figure it out before this is over with. But where we are right now is we need to add some more cascading style sheets. So let's go ahead and add some more room. And you notice that my code is going up because I'm running out of room here. But hopefully you can see this in your screen capture. So let's stop for a minute, and I'll be right back. Let's wrap up our CSS right now. So the last piece of the puzzle is the footer. So I'm going to put my hashtag footer. I'm sorry, no I'm not. Let me put the cursor down where it's supposed to be, and we'll be able to do that. Hashtag footer, and I'll open and curly brace, closes the curly brace for me. Put a couple lines in here, and I'm going to go ahead and indent. So the first thing we have to do is, let's take a look real quick, is notice that our footer is kind of in the wrong place, right? So we have to clear these floats, and we want to clear both floats. If we just clear this float, it's going to put it right here, but if we clear both floats, it's going to put it down here. So let's go ahead and type in a simple line of code for that. Clear both. Very simple. Okay, let's add a background color. We know that we used blue before. We're not going to use a hex value because we want it to be the exact same blue as my header. So that's what I used in the header. So let's use that in the footer. And we know we want the color of my text to be what? Hex white. And that's hex white. FFF. Okay? So, wow. Are we done? I think we are, or very close. I think we've got some issues to do with that gray bar that's running across the middle, but I'm going to, just outside of your picture, I'm hitting the save, so I save my Cascading Style sheet. Let's go ahead and pull up our page, so at least this piece of the footer is going to move, and let's see what that does. Whoops. Excuse me, I hit the wrong thing. Oh, there it is. That's where I want it. Okay, great. Alright, so there's a couple more pieces of housekeeping that I would like, and I'm going to show you the full page in a minute, especially with the gray, with the container on the inside. This is the contents. I don't know. Let's see what happens if I make this really wide. Okay. Well, it didn't change it too much. It did change the margins out here. You can probably only see up to here, but everything is centered. I don't like this at all, and I really want my header and my footer to be a little wider. I can do that, or a little higher. So that's really simple. We haven't used the height command yet, but let's go ahead and use that right now. So in my header, well, let's start with the footer because we're right here. So I'm going to put it after the clear both, and I'm going to put height, and I'm going to be real specific. I'm going to say 80 pixels. And I'm going to make my header height a little bit bigger than that. Not much, a little bit bigger. Let's go 96 pixels. And now here's the beauty of Cascading Style sheets, right? You can simply write some code, make sure you save the code, and go quickly take a look and see what you've done, what kind of differences you've made. That's way too big. I don't like that at all, right? That's also way too big, and I'm also going to want that text to be on the bottom of my footer. So let's go ahead and change that. So we're going to go back, Alt-Tab. I think, I don't know, maybe 46 pixels is better. And then certainly for my footer, I'm going to want to be even smaller. My footer, I'm going to go, I don't know, 20 pixels. So let's save that and take a look. Again, this is finishing the design, right? I'm going to save that. Okay, that's a lot better. I like that, how that's looking. I like how this page is looking. My links are working. As you can see, when I click on them, they show by contrast from the blue to the A. This little gray bar is going to cause me some pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve it while I'm not recording, and then come back and show you how I solved it. Because to be honest with you, I have an idea where it is, but I don't know exactly where it is, and I don't want to waste time on this video just kind of hunting around. So I'll be right back with the solution. Hi, and welcome back. I have determined where my errors were in my CSS as far as that gray bar was concerned, but I made a few other changes, and here is my finished product. You will be able to download the finished tutorial.html from the description section of the YouTube video, and I'm going to show you in the code real briefly. I'm not going to do the live coding, I'm just going to show you the code. The code for the CSS, which is tutorial style1.css, that file is also available for download in the description of the YouTube tutorial. So you can download those at your convenience and just kind of look at the code, maybe get a better understanding. But this looks a lot cleaner. Basically what I did is I added a percentage. You can see I added a percentage to the width of the header, just made it 98%. So what that does is the container border, the gray around the border of the container, shows. Same with the footer, right? So the footer and the header kind of look the same. I also changed the white background to completely gray. I did determine why the padding was off and we were getting that little gray bar with the white little gray bar with a little corner cut out right here in the nav. Basically it was my padding. I had used the wrong padding, and I'll show you that code real quickly. So this is what our finished product looks like. Let's go take a look at our CSS. Okay, so what I've done is I've done the background color, this light shade of gray, the header background color. Notice I've added a width to the header. Okay, I can make this bigger because I'm recording in full screen, and then I'm just going to fit it to the screen when I publish this. Let's go up to the top, just see if there's anything up there. Nope. So the container color, background color, is that. I added the header margin. Okay, so 98%, but if you don't add this piece of code, margin auto left and right, it's going to be 98% and you know, aligned to the left. So you got to put the margin left and right. Okay. Contents is the same. There's my padding that I changed. I really don't need this line right now, but I'm just going to leave it in there. The background for the nav is this color. The background for the main is going to be that color. You can see it right there. Background for the main. And then my footer, same thing. Width of 98% and the margin auto left, auto right to center it. That's our tutorial. Thank you for visiting Marty's tutorial. I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned how powerful cascading style sheets are and how to use them with your HTML.